Hi, YouTubers, fans of Stalking the Wild Auto Harp. Today, the day has arrived for Stalking the Wild Auto Harp to turn a corner. We're going to go into some new territory now, and this is something that I have wanted to do from the very beginning. I have wanted to shoot some interviews, and today we're going to crack that nut. And I've been setting up for the past few months, I've been setting up a number of interviews with people. We're going to be doing about one a month, maybe one every 6 weeks. And I'm super excited about it because I've got some real good talent lined up for you. And I am not the best talent at being a host. It's kind of a different thing, being an interviewer. But I'm learning as I go, and there are some things that didn't come out quite right about today's interview. I'm learning as I go. I'll do it better next time, but I'm super excited to present today's guest. My friend today is Louis Bloch, and he's got a fascinating backstory that involves the auto harp, and well, I'm just going to let him tell it in his own words. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you Mr. Louis Bloch. Louis,
How are you, brother?
good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
Welcome to Stalking the Wild Auto Harp as our first guest.
I'm thrilled, brother. I'm honored.
I am so
Really.
pleased to have you on and to have met you this past summer. You were definitely a high point, and you continue to be just a real blessing to know and an encouragement. And I just really wanted to ask you about um, your experience and how that led to your auto harp playing. So, can you begin there for us and tell us something about that?
Yeah, sure. Hal, first I'd like to say to all the people out there that are in your stalking the wild auto harp world, and anybody that might come on and find us down the road, all the glory I have goes to God. He's the one that got me out of the mess. I'm a Vietnam veteran. 1968 in Vietnam. I was up on the demilitarized zone. I was in the Army attached to the 3rd Marine Division. I was blown up with a 40 millimeter round like this. This was actually in my hands when it blew up. Not this particular one, but one like this. It's a 2-pound warhead, has a killing radius of 50 feet. And obviously, that's a lot of gunpowder inside of this. I mean, when you put it next to a human body, if you think about it, it's a lot of gunpowder. Anyway, this was in my hands when it blew up. Today, I got finger picks on that are metal instead of this kind of metal. Still got metal in me. So, anyway, I flew through the air 50 foot from where I was blown up. And when I landed on the ground, I figured I was dead. But all of a sudden, it was like a spring in my butt. I jumped up and I realized today that it was obviously some kind of angel or spiritual thing, man, because I shouldn't be here. I mean, I was literally from the belly button up, full of shrapnel and no skin left on me. Uh, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be able to see. I shouldn't have any hair on my face. Shouldn't. That's what the doctors all said. But by the grace of God, I am here today. So anyway, I get home. Things are ugly. Um, I should say that the Marines got me out of there onto a Navy hospital, USS Sanctuary. Thank you, all the people there. And they saved my butt. Anyway, I get home to the States and they gave me bad blood. So now I have jaundice. I'm run out of my own hometown. Everything I knew in my life, I was run out of. I start getting a little crazy. And the next thing I know is I'm living on a farm and I got these bees. I'm raising honey. I sell this guy honey and he can't pay me the money. And he comes to me and he says, "Hey," he says, "would you take this for the money I owe you?" I said, "What the hell is it?" He says, "It's an auto harp." I says, "What do you do with it?" Now, I'm not a musician. I don't know nothing about music. And he says, well, you play it. And I says, how? And he says, oh, I don't know. He says, I played a guitar. He says, but when I saw it, he says, I thought it looked interesting, so I bought it, but I don't know what to do with it. I says, all right. That was the beginning of me playing auto harp. And I realized that when he gave it to me, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But because I was blown up and I had very little use of my hands because my hands were completely crippled and I had no use of them, I started playing around with auto harp. And the next thing, I found a couple buttons and I said, hey, you know what? That kind of sounds good. And I started moving my fingers and I realized this is good physical therapy for me. And the auto harp has been with me. That was 1972, 73, so somewhere in there, 72, 73.
You mentioned to me when we talked on the phone, you mentioned how they repaired your ears.
Yes.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Well, yeah, like I said, I was pretty messed up, man. I couldn't see, I couldn't hear. My eardrums obviously were both blown out. The concussion was severe. And so what they did was they took this long, like a funnel, black funnel, that they look in your ears with, but it was pretty long. And they stuck that down in my ear right up against where my eardrum used to be. And they cut out a piece of rice paper, like cigarette paper, rolling papers, for all you fellow potheads out there, or cannabis users. I should use the word pot. That's not nice, but cannabis users. One of those like rice papers, and they put that where my eardrum was, and they dropped acid on it, and the acid irritated the flesh that had been destroyed, and it caused it to grow on the rice papers and create a membrane over top of the rice papers. And over time, the rice papers just disintegrated in my head. Maybe that's why I'm an idiot and don't know music. I don't know. But it allowed me to hear again. And I'm actually my ears are more sensitive today than I can ever remember, although I still have tinnitus from it all. But the sensitivity of my ears of hearing pleasant sounds or irritating sounds. I guess that's the best way to put it because I don't know music. I know sounds. I know the vibrations, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And wow, it's amazing that, again, like I said, that was the doctors on the USS Sanctuary. These doctors, these guys were musicians. What they could do for a human body, these trauma surgeons. Anyway, so that's
So,
that.
what year was this at the bee farm where you got the
Oh,
harp?
that would have been in the early 70s, 72, 3, 70. It was, I lived on I owned a 60-acre tree farm for the whole decade of the 70s.
And then you have a story about your daughter.
Yeah, Viet. My daughter, Viet. Viet is a wonderful little girl. She was born in Vietnam. I went back to Vietnam and did 5 years of humanitarian work there and met her mom. And so she was born in Da Nang, Vietnam, and where I was headquartered out of doing my humanitarian work. And she, one day I was at school with her, and she was 6 years old. And we were leaving the class, and I did the parent volunteer thing. I kind of like kids. Delivered two of my kids, by the way. So we're walking hand in hand, and she looks up at me and she said, "Daddy, the violin is my passion." And I'm wondering, where did she get this from? The violin is my passion. And I thought to myself, how interesting. So I went and I got her one of these little kitty violins. And she has graduated with a master's degree in violin performance. And now she has 9 private students and a class of 48 students that she's teaching in Pendleton, Oregon. And she's part of the symphony orchestra over there.
But all this time that she was growing up, you were playing. Is that correct?
No, I never played. I never played my auto harp because I was afraid that I would teach her bad things because I don't know music. But every week I took her to her music teacher and I sat at the music teacher with my mouth shut. And I allowed her to learn music. Today, my daughter can read scores of music that when I look at it, I go, are you kidding me? I mean, like, wow, yeah, thousands of dots on one page. And she's going, no, that's crazy stuff, man.
But for you, the music has been therapy.
Yeah, quiet's the beast that I am.
And
So,
you found that effect in the auto harp, especially.
In the auto harp, okay, so my daughter graduates, and after she graduates, I say, okay, I'm going to get back into my auto harp. So out into the garage, and found my old 1972 Oscar Schmidt. It had been stepped on, crushed, broken up. I'm not a Luther, but I've repaired it, put glue on it, and little pin blocks underneath it to hold it up and stuff like that. And yeah, just to keep it alive. And so I got it out of the garage and put on some new strings and started playing around with it again. And I was online one day and said, holy smokes, there's other people playing the auto harp today. And I found Pete Daigle up in Seattle, and here's a guy up there making auto harps. Now, the only guy that I ever knew that played auto harp was Brian Bowers. I had heard about him back in the 70s because I was up in Washington, Southwest Washington. He was up in Washington. We both left the East Coast. We both ended up in Washington. We both loved the woods. We both loved the animals, and we both played the auto harp. And we're both about the same age with white beards. So I knew about him, but I didn't know that anybody else played. I just thought, hey, here's this guy that's a musician that's traveled around, played with Linda Ronstadt and stuff back in the 70s. I was familiar with all of that, but let that go by the wayside. And then I find out, oh, Pete Daigle, Seattle, making auto harps. What's this about? Now I find out that there's a half a dozen at least Luthers around the country that make auto harps. And somebody's actually making auto harp strings that you don't have to get the Oscar Schmidt, that 3 break out of every 36 package. Come on. So now there's people that make strings, they make auto harps, they talk auto harps, they have auto harp gatherings, and I'm going, holy smokes. The past 25 years that I was a veg in the auto harp world, and I used to be the only person hardly that played auto harp. And now I'm finding out that there's thousands of people, and I think it's great. I love it. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Can you talk about you explained to me a very just a personal experience of the auto harp healing you as you learned to play.
Yeah. One of the things, there's been a couple of things that I like. To feel the vibration up against my body, not just to do the auditory, which is important, but also the physical of holding the auto harp up against my body.
When you came back, there was some, I think you told me there was some difficulty around your Purple Heart.
Yeah. Well, actually, the difficulty wasn't the Purple Heart. The difficulty was Louis. Um, I was, like I had mentioned, I was on the USS Sanctuary, and a Marine Corps general came around to uh, issue our citations. And when he got to me, I was my hands were over my head. They told me I'd never be able to feel anything again, but that was okay because I was lucky. They were able to save most of it, and I was blind, and my ears had this strange sound that actually it was piercing at the time. And he says to me, "Son, I want to give you your Purple Heart." And I used some really foul language, told him what he could do with it, put it where the sun don't shine. And he said that he understood. And he said, I'll always keep that in your file. He said, because someday you may want it. So some years went by, and in 1980, and that was in 1968, in July of 1968 when that happened. And then in 1980, I finally had to go and get my Purple Heart because nobody would believe that I was in combat and that I refused a Purple Heart. Everybody said nobody refuses a Purple Heart. And I said, I didn't go to Vietnam to get a medal. That's not why I went. And just because I got one, just because they said I earned it, didn't mean I had to take it. So I didn't take it. But I had to take it because nobody would believe me unless I had it. I knew that I was wounded. I knew it was combat. People in America chose not to believe me. They chose to think I was a liar, and that it seemed that people either they hated Vietnam and Vietnam veterans, or they loved the veteran and they hated anybody that they thought was an imposter. So no matter what I did, I was hated because I didn't have that Purple Heart. So I figured, well, I got to at least find half of a group that likes me. So I get a Purple Heart. Now I can tell people, yeah, I do have the Purple Heart. I did earn the Purple Heart. And they say, oh, okay. So, yeah, America was so divided because of Vietnam. And if I thought that there was division after Vietnam, that was nothing compared to the division we see in this country today, Hal. And that's the gospel truth. I mean, just look around, man. This is not the America that I shed blood for. And it hurts. It hurts in here. Why? Because I don't care what color you are. I don't care which of the two sexes you are. I don't care how tall you are, how short you are, how fat you are, how skinny you are. I don't care. If you're an American, you're my brother. You're my sister. Straight up. That's where it's at, man. We all bleed red, white, and blue. I've seen it. I've seen it. I didn't care what the color of the skin was. When it was opened up, we all looked the same inside. Every white guy had a white bone and red blood. Every black dude, he had a white bone and red blood. The only difference was the outside. The insides were all the same. I know, I seen it. Seen the inside. Seen the yellow insides too. Even seen some Mexican insides. Woo, that's a terrible thing. I guess that's why I got PTSD. I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't go there.
But you finally did get the Purple Heart, right?
Yes, sir, I did. Yeah, I did get the Purple Heart, and I'm very proud of the Purple Heart. And finding Pete Daigle was one of the interesting things. And thanks for the lead in, by the way. I see, yeah. So I will run into that. So I see that. So I drive up to Seattle. It's 3 hours away from me. And I go in there and I says to this guy, hey, I'm Louis Block, shake his hand. I says, you have any water harps for sale? And he says, yeah. He says, I have this Laura Lee. Laura Lee, okay, Laura Lee. I was used to Oscar Schmidt. Laura Lee, okay, no problem. So I bought it. I get it home, but it's a 32 string instrument. And it's a little smaller of an instrument, a really good beginner instrument. It's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. The sound is outrageous, but it lacks the 5 bass notes that provide what Louis has to have up against his chest.
Right.
So I called Pete up and I asked him about, hey, what's the story here? And so I went up there. Actually, I went up there to meet you. And when I was sitting in the class with you, and I announced that I had the Laura Lee and that it was for sale if anybody wanted to buy it. And sure enough, the lady with the red hair actually bought it and was very interested in buying it. She was thrilled to get it because Pete did not have any for sale at that time. You had to pre-order them. So here she was able to actually purchase one already made. So I sold it to her to have Pete make me a new one that was more of a full size, and it's the 37 string. And so while you were there and we were talking about the construction of my new auto harp that Pete Daigle was going to make personally for me. So I had done some homework again on the sound. I had asked my daughter and her husband about the sound, what woods would be best. I went online and start looking, but mostly it's about guitars and stuff. But it's all right. It's still good information. So I found out that, the walnut for the back and the cedar for the top make the warmest sound for the Daigle harp. And so I said, okay, that's really good. Now, the accent to me was, something that's a little reddish because the ladies say I look good in red. Notice my glasses. So, and that's a joke, by the way. So anyway, you look at my hat and you say to Pete, how about purple heartwood? Now, I've never even heard of purple heartwood. I've never even heard of this. And it was because I was wearing my hat that had the purple heart on it. And so Pete says, yeah, we can do that. So I went up there to Pete's. Now then, some time went, and Pete had to make sure that there was wood and so forth. And that's another thing. While you were there, you did a video of Greg cutting the walnut. That's one of the pieces he cut that day that you actually have on your film. If you look at your film, you look at this pattern and you'll see it when he takes the 2 pieces and holds them together. That was glued together, and you said, okay, he's going to glue it together and put it there for a couple. That, oh, wait. Get the heck out of here. All for the same bolt. That's beautiful. We have them all for the same bolt. So with your suggestion of the purple heartwood, that is my decorative wood.
Yeah,
on
hold
here.
that bad boy up so we can see the chord bars. Purple heart maple. That's beautiful.
Purple heart.
That's crazy beautiful.
And then I had a person, one of my friends, had given me a Purple Heart medallion to wear that is not my actual Purple Heart, but there was some writing on the back of it. Well, I took it up to Pete, and he ground it down and mounted it for me on the Purple Heart wood. So this is a unique Daigle harp, one of a kind, with Purple Heartwood. I hope he never has to make another one. But if there's any veterans out there, talk to Pete Daigle and Purple Heartwood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So
Now,
I could be more happy with the harp. And the thing is, now I want to buy another one. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I want to start to as I hold this now, I speak to you, I can hear the resonance as I speak to you. I'm speaking this way. My harp's down here. This is so sensitive compared to the Oscar Schmidt. Pete, here you go, brother. The Oscar Schmidt is a toy. The Dago harp is an instrument. There's a difference.
Now, will you honor us with a song?
Oh boy, yeah. If I can remember. I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes, but you know what? I ain't playing for nobody but me and my God. And that's it. Anybody that don't like it, thumbs down. Anybody that does like it, thumbs up. And you know what? The thumbs down, I don't really care. Because you know what? I've been through more than any of them people could ever think about. And I'm just so happy that I could be here today at age 72 and praise God and play my auto harp. That's a good thing.
And Louis, thank you for being here today. This has really been fabulous. It's been my honor to have you on the show and to share you with some of our Stalking the Wild Auto Harps fans. And you are, I love you, man.
I love you too, Hal.
It's wonderful to have met you and have made a new friend. And I hope that soon I can actually be in your presence and we can sit down and play some music together.
So anyway, Hal, this has been a wonderful thing, and I want to thank the audience out there, Stalking Wild Auto Harp audience. And you know, this is an instrument that, and I'm living proof. You don't have to be a musician to enjoy music and to enjoy yourself with the sound. And you too can have beautiful music. Because remember, auto harps make us one.
That's an awesome note to end on.
You bet.
Thanks, Louie.
God bless you, brother.
So there you have it. The Louie Block story, straight from the horse's mouth. Hope you enjoyed that like I did. It was amazing meeting Louie this summer, and I just knew I wanted to share his story and how it all wrapped up into that wonderful auto harp that he's had built. And he's clearly loving it, and I love him. He's the real thing. And there's going to be more of these interviews, so don't be surprised if I come knocking on your door. I'm interested in folks with tales to tell. And this is what I'm learning is I'm meeting so many wonderful folks in the auto harp community. Folk music is about the folks and the music. And so I'm interested in talking to all kinds of people, and I've got some real auto harp luminaries lined up for you. As a matter of fact, we're going to have one next month. Who will it be? And so stay tuned to Stalking the Wild Auto Harp. If you like this, please remember to like, subscribe. I've got a Patreon where you can chip in. Keep this going. It really helps. And remember that I teach lessons online too, right in this very environment that you see, this stunning blue curtain. We can have lessons here every week, you and me, and address your auto harp learning issues one-on-one. So until next time, I'm Hal Weeks. This is Stalking the Wild Auto Harp. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.